Well, I hope by now, as we've been going through this epistle that Paul wrote to the church at Philippi, you're starting to get a good context and background, so when you read this epistle, you'll be able to sort of follow all the way through all 4 chapters. We talked about the fact that Paul's in prison and he's telling us how to live a life worthy of the gospel, that it matters. The way we live really matters because people don't really care what we know. What they want to know is that we care. So in chapter 1, he starts off by saying, hey, God started a good work in verse 6 that he's going to complete to the day of Jesus. And even though I'm in chains, the gospel's going forth. And then in chapter 2, he turns towards the person of Jesus and the way he was and gives us 3 great examples, Timothy, Paul, and Epaphroditus, into chapter 3, where he talks about the fact that he's willing to give up anything for Jesus. Because in verse 20 here of chapter 3, he says our citizenship is in heaven. In other words, we're heavenly citizens. We should live a different life, which moves us into chapter 4, which I really believe is the major reason for the writing of this particular epistle. There is a problem in the church at Philippi, and it's with 2 prominent women, Euodia and Syntyche. They're not getting along in the Lord. There's a problem. So see, what Paul's done is he showed us that, hey, living out the gospel is important because people that are guards and people that are in the city, it's important how we live it out, but he turns it inward now. And he says, I got 2 Christian women that both love God that are in a fight. What do they need to do? They need to get it together because that's what it means to live out the gospel. They don't need to be anxious about anything. They need to take it to the Lord. They need to think on the things that are positive and move forward because how we live matters, which brings it personal and home. Many of us have interactions with other Christians that have maybe eroded or things aren't at where we want to be. We should be willing to do whatever it takes to make those relationships work because that's what Jesus would do. And in doing that, we start to live lives that are worthy of the gospel. So now as you read this epistle, and I hope you'll go back and look at all of the other talks that we had about this and devotions that we had about this, because I believe when we read the epistle to the Philippians, it should really speak to you and me about how important our lives are in the proclamation of the gospel. So will you take a moment today and say, God, use me, use my life, use who I am, in a manner worthy of proclaiming your gospel.